So today we're going to talk about how to write equations of lines, given the slope and the y-intercept, or given a point and the slope. So first let's start off with these examples. Okay, so we want to write an equation of a line that has a slope of -5/3 and a y-intercept of 4. So for number one, if we're thinking about this, we're given the slope and the y-intercept. Do you know the name of a form of a line that has the slope and an intercept? So notice how we have y equals mx plus b form. So y equals -5/3 x plus 4. So knowing the names of the form are going to be useful because we have slope-intercept form. So if we're given the slope and the y-intercept, we can write it into slope-intercept form easily. Okay, so in looking at this problem, we have 2 points, right? We have the x-intercept is at -6, so I'm going to write that as -6, 0, and our y-intercept is at 3. Can we find the slope between those 2 points? So let's see if we do 3 minus 0 over 0 minus a -6, we get 3 over +6, so 1/2 is our slope. So we're given the slope, but don't we also have the y-intercept? So using y equals mx plus b form, we can write the equation of this line. So if we don't have the slope, we have to find it. Okay, so the slope formula is the change in y over the change in x, and that equals m. So if you're given this formula, what we can do, we could solve for, or we could rearrange this problem, cancel that side out, and we're left with y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, where x sub 1 comma y sub 1, those represents coordinate points. So for this formula, this is a form of a line where we can input a point and the slope. So this is the last form of a line that we'll be discussing this unit, and it's called point-slope form of a line, where m is your slope and your x1 comma y1 is a point on the line. So this is a form that you need to memorize. So let's say it together a few times just so you can build some, like hear it out loud and make sure that you're using this and kind of saying this form out loud as you're practicing these problems. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So let's say it together. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. One more time. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So say that again a few times. It will stick, I promise. But let's see how we can use this form. So the form again is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so we have a slope of -2. So where that m is, I'm going to plug in a -2. And y and x are just part of the problem, but we have to plug in values for x sub 1 and y sub 1. So this point, x sub 1 is 3 and y sub 1 is 5. So if x sub 1 is 3, that's going to go with that x, and y sub 1 is 5, that's going to go with the y. So we can leave our answer in this form, and this is how we can write an equation of a line that has a slope of -2 that goes through the point 3, 5. Okay, so find the equation of a line that goes through a point 1, 2, but it's parallel to y equals 3x minus 7. So what do we know about parallel lines? We have the same slope. So the slope is 3. So another way to ask this question is find the equation of a line that goes through the point 1, 2 and has a slope of 3. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So when we plug in these values, we have y minus 2 equals m, your slope, times x minus 1. And we can leave the equation like that. Okay, so now looking at this, we want to find the equation that goes through -3, 0, and 1, 8. So what we have to do first is find the slope. So 8 minus 0 over 1 minus a -3. We got 8 over 4, which is 2. So we have a slope of 2. But notice how we have 2 points. We got -3, 0, and then 1, 8. So what to do? Just pick one of these points. I'm going to pick 1, 8 to help us. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so y minus 8 equals 2 is our slope, x minus 1. Or let's say you chose this other point. We could write it as y minus 0 equals 2 times x. And so this is tough, because this is a -3 here, the form has y or x minus x1. So when we look at this, we have x minus a -3, which turns this into a plus sign. So we end up with y equals 2 times x plus 3. And then if we wanted to, we can solve this equation for y, and we can rearrange this into, what form is this? Slope intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So we can always solve these equations for y, and it can be rearranged into slope intercept form, or y equals mx plus b form. Okay, so what if I gave you this problem? These numbers are ginormous, they're big, they're annoying. So if you're looking at this, we have to be able to recognize the form. So y minus 182 equals this number times x plus 354. So recognizing that this is in point slope form will be useful. So what is the slope? Here, that's the slope. Okay, and then we're looking for a point. So remember, it's an x comma y. But since this sign is plus, that means 354 is negative. And then since this is just minus 182, we have a positive 182. So that's a point on that line. Okay, let's find the equation of a line that goes through 6, 4 and is perpendicular to y equals negative 2x plus 4. So if it's perpendicular to this line, that means the slope has to be an opposite reciprocal. So opposite is positive, and then the reciprocal is 1/2. So we can rearrange it into y minus 4 equals 1/2 times x minus 6. Now, let's rearrange this into slope-intercept form. So this is a correct answer, just writing an equation of a line, but now let's say I wanted to write this in slope-intercept form. We can distribute. And then add 4. So this is in point slope, but when we solve for y, we get slope intercept. So if you are given a point and the slope of a line, you can rewrite it in point slope form. And if you have an equation in point slope form, then you can rewrite and rearrange into slope intercept form. by solving for y. And then you can get y equals mx plus b form. Okay, so just to kind of go through the advantages and names of the lines, the forms of the lines. First thing, we have standard form. And with standard form, we can easily find the intercepts. Okay, so standard form, we can easily find intercepts. And then slope intercept form, we can easily find the slope and the y-intercept. It's also really easy to graph when we have the slope intercept form. And then for point slope form, we can find a point on the line and the slope. This is also easy to graph. So if we plot any point and we know the slope, then we can plot this line anywhere that on the graph. So as long as you have one point and the slope, you can graph that line.